So welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you are new here, again, my name is Kimber. I'm the Study Abroad Specialist. I'm here to make your life easier as you embark on a journey overseas. Go ahead and like this video, share this video, and also subscribe to the channel. Lots of videos on here and many more to come. So when it comes to study abroad and your career, and specifically with job interviews, this is a question that I get a lot from students, and it's something that has been really impactful for me. I know that even now, as I go through talking to people about my career, that I still use examples from study abroad, even though it was more than 10 years ago. Not that I'm that old, but I will just say that there's a lot of ability to maximize what you're doing with study abroad as you move forward in your career, particularly for students who are just getting started out. But even if you're a mid-career professional, there may be still things that you can call on from what you've done in the past. And that's what I want to talk about. So the first thing that I want to just preface is that it's really important, and it's becoming more and more important as we live in a global world. Now, I'm not someone, I personally don't like the word global citizen. It makes me cringe a little bit. I'm an American, and that means something. And if you're French, that probably means something to you, and vice versa, no matter where you are. But the idea that we live in a global world is very important to think about. The world is small. That's something that we know. We know how interconnected things are. We also know, too, how companies now are looking at things since the pandemic, specifically how companies have branched out, and how for some companies they're still doing a lot of remote working or remote only working. And so there's a lot more opportunity not only to collaborate with people more from overseas and from different countries, but also to be able to have an opportunity to showcase your global prowess. And that's really important when you think about study abroad. For a lot of people, and I hear this, unfortunately, from people who have never studied abroad a day in their life. Okay, so they don't know what they're talking about. I know what I'm talking about here. They frame study abroad as, oh, you just went on vacation somewhere. If they say that to you, just send them to me and send them this video specifically, and I will get them together for you. But when it comes to thinking about study abroad, it's more than just that you went away to Switzerland for 6 months and you had fun and you ate chocolate and all that stuff. You actually did things. And for some students, they feel like, well, if I went away and I didn't do an internship or I didn't do volunteering, I was just in a classroom, then I probably shouldn't really talk about it. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Now, I will frame it in the sense of saying that you can be between, yes, you can talk about it and be the extreme of that meme that we all see on social media of like the girl who just came back from studying abroad. She talks about it every 5 minutes. Maybe you don't want to be that person, but you can use it to your advantage in your career. So when you're thinking about the global aspect of things, go through and start thinking about some examples that you've used of how you've worked across cultures with people. Maybe in your particular class that you were in, it was all people from your same nationality, but you had an opportunity to do things out in the community while you were away, or maybe you lived in dedicated housing where it was, let's say, only people from France. And so you had to learn how to communicate with people and be able to learn different customs with people. These are all things that, believe it or not, no matter where you are in the world, employers actually value. Because as we go through life, I know that especially here in the US, we are still a little bit more insular, but workplaces and other places that we all are becoming much more global and much more saturated with different cultures. So it's a way to be able to showcase that you're able to work cross-culturally. And again, even as a student, it doesn't have to be something grand, but you could talk about maybe you were in a class where you were with different students and you had to work on a group project, and this was something where you had to come together, and because you come from different countries, maybe you have different styles of working or things mean different things. And so, and I'm talking from experience here, that but I know it's something that students go through, that you had to learn how to work together and be able to get the group project done. So this is something that is very simple to think about, and it's something that you may feel is small, but especially when you are going forward with your career. And I know that I can speak as an older millennial, and now I know it's way tougher now for Gen Z coming out of college and starting to get their careers going, that there's so much competition. Anything that you can do to sort of set yourself apart and really express that you know how to tackle sort of the key points of what's ever going on in the day is going to be important. And we know that looking ahead, that global growth is going to be something that's really important. So really think about that. The next thing to note is that there is a level of risk taking when it comes to study abroad. And again, depending on what country you're coming from, maybe it's something where a lot of people do it. Here in this country, in the US, it's still less than 10%, believe it or not, of students that actually study abroad. I know that sounds very low based on how many millions of students we have in this country, but it's less than 10%. And because of that reason, again, I'm speaking from the American perspective and the Western perspective because Canada is a little bit of the same. But it doesn't matter, even if you're a student coming from the UK and you're going somewhere else, thinking about the fact that it is a little bit of a risk because for a lot of students, you're not going to a place where you're familiar with. You're not going to a place where you know a lot of people. You're not going to a place maybe even where you're going with friends. So that's a level of risk taking. Now, it's very strategic and safe risk taking. You're not just sort of jumping on a plane and going someplace for the first time that you don't know, or you're not going to a war-torn country, right? But what you're doing is that you are taking a risk because this is something that you don't know how it's going to turn out. You're thinking based on what you've read in the program pamphlet, what you've heard from your advisors, that it all is going to go well, but you don't actually know what's going to happen. So you can frame that in a job interview or as you're going through it in your career as a level of risk taking and thinking about how that relates to whatever you want to do. And with this, again, similar to thinking about the global part, for all of these, you can definitely use the STAR method. So I will go ahead and link that here. If you've never heard of that, if you're just getting started with your career, there's different methods, but with the STAR method, this is something that you can plug in as you're going through with your job interviews. And you can think about, again, examples from your study abroad journey of how you want to plug that in to use examples that are going to be important to you. Another tip that I will just give that's going to be important is that you want to go ahead and just write down some anecdotes as you're going through your study abroad journey. This is something that I did way back in the day, and it actually was helpful for me to be able to remember those stories because, again, life is happening so quickly. I know, of course, for a lot of you have everything on film now, but as you're going through, if you are someone that you like to journal or you just like to take notes, if you had something that was a very positive experience or even a negative experience, maybe you are, for example, talking about how you dealt with conflict, write that down just so that you remember, and you'll have this running file from your study abroad journey, and it's going to help you in the future as you look towards your career. So on that point with handling conflict and things that arise, problem solving is something that all employers or all people that you're working with, let's say if you have clients but you're working for yourself, they want to understand that you can solve problems. And problem solving is something that comes up a lot, believe it or not, for study abroad students because, again, you are trying to initiate yourself into a culture. You're going through culture shock. You're going through homesickness. You may be just trying to figure out where the train station is. There's all these different things that are going on. And there is a sort of higher level of problem solving that is needed when you're just getting used to a newer culture. You can use examples of how you problem solved maybe in a class to figure out how to acclimate yourself to the academic ways of the particular country that you're in. Again, the example of maybe you're living with other exchange students. How did you problem solve when all the roommates need to come together to do something? They're all from different cultures. How did that actually work out for you? There are so many ways to think about that and frame that for yourself in terms of being a problem solver and what that means of how you used it in your study abroad program and how you can use it in your upcoming career. So definitely something to think about that as well. Last but not least, I will just say that independence is going to be something that is going to be important as you think about how you want to discuss your study abroad journey in your future career. Now, I like to frame this in a certain way because there is a certain amount of autonomy, hopefully if you're very lucky and don't have a micromanager, that you will have within your job, but you also too will have times where you have to work with people. We know that. But thinking about how you're able to be independent as you're going through, again, this is more tailored towards people that are just getting started in their career because they're not as used to seeing this. But you will see a lot of times in your career as you're going through and looking at job descriptions, or even if, let's say, you're just working in a small team where people may say you can work with a team, but also too needs to be able to take on tasks independently or needs to be able to move projects forward. A lot of times you will be doing things independently by yourself. For some people, that can be very scary. For me, that's like my dream world. But I do understand that, particularly if you're a student, you're used to doing things in groups or with people where, even if, let's say, you're working on your own project, everyone's kind of doing the same thing. And so you're moving in the same direction. You're taking those social cues of whether you're on the right pathway or not from your other peers. Whereas once you actually get into your career, it's a lot different. And so you can definitely use the angle of independence during your study abroad program to talk more about that. So maybe you did work on a project in class that was more independent. Maybe it was something where you were going out every day for an internship. All your roommates, they had to take one train line. You had to take another train line and then change twice. And so you had to figure out how to do that safely. These are little things that people don't think would illustrate independence, but it is a way of being able to do that. And there are other things too. Maybe you had to actually find your own housing. And so how did you go about that process? Maybe something happened with your passport. You had to figure out how to actually get that replaced. Maybe for what you were doing with your program, you need to get in contact with someone back home to figure out how to get your transcript forwarded. So how did you go about and do that? And these are things that you took on upon your own ability to be able to do it independently. How did that actually work? So being able to explain that to people, and again, using that STAR method or the CAR method, there's so many different methods, being able to tell that story. Again, using study abroad is just like using an internship you've done. It's just like talking about volunteer work you've done or any class work you've done. It's about being able to do the storytelling of that and be able to showcase how this actual time was, number one, more than just a vacation, because study abroad is more than just a vacation. Most vacations don't cost over $20,000 a semester to do. But also, too, that you actually got value out of what you were doing during your study abroad program. So for more tips on how to use study abroad for your career and just more tips on study abroad in general, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And I want you to watch this video now so that you can learn more about how to budget for a study abroad program. I will see you in the next one.